Hey guys, welcome into the House of Halas podcast. Wait, we don't do episodes anymore. I genuinely wouldn't even know what episode this is, Frank, to be completely honest with you. It's the episode where we gush about Ben Johnson and the Bears staff that he has quietly put together here. Frankie, before we get started here, I like to get back to checking in on you, specifically about Ben. Let's talk about it a little bit. How are you still feeling? Is the hot, because I listened to the pod last week, of course, while I was in the grocery store, and I want to know. Obviously, you and Nas riding high, as I think a lot of Bears fans, most Bears fans, I would assume, probably were. Is that high still there? You still feeling good?
Oh yeah, 100%. There have been some memes that I'm sure you've seen some of them at least. That's like, getting ready for the championship games or getting ready for the Super Bowl, and like it's the Bears fan at the party, like they don't know that the Bears are so fucking back, and like that's where
I've
I'm
seen the
at right now.
banners. I've seen the offseason banners that we've won the offseason for the
Yeah,
third straight year, because
listen,
we absolutely have.
I know an off-season hates to see the Chicago Bears coming, baby, because we just win and win and win. Couple years ago, we had the number one pick. We trade that, get DJ Moore, and all the other draft picks that come with that. The year after that, we had the number one pick again because we fucking stink. And then
Technically, the Panthers stunk.
I know, but it doesn't fit the narrative.
Technically.
And then we get the greatest Bears quarterback of all time. And then this year we get the best coach to ever exist. An offseason hates to see a Bears fan coming, baby.
Man, speaking of best Bears quarterback season we've ever seen, the amount just this weekend from the championship games that Caleb's rookie season was reduced on social media was just, I mean, it was I guess I was having some fun with Commanders fans and their ilk with Jaden Daniels playing not I wouldn't say necessarily a good game, but it was fine. And man, if you just didn't watch a single second of Caleb, you'd think he had one of the worst seasons by a number one pick playing quarterback of all time. And it's just so far from the truth. And I absolutely cannot wait to see what Ben Johnson does with this kid. Because Frankie, we talked, you, Nas, myself, we've been talking about it throughout the entire offseason when Eberflus was retained. We've been talking about it as the possibility came closer of Eberflus being fired. And then once he was fired, Ben Johnson was my number one target and has been for a very long time. And so to actually see them pull it off and to see what he's done with this coaching staff so far, it's just so, I know people want to do the Nagy thing, and it's just so different. It's so different from that because Matt Nagy didn't have that play calling experience that Ben Johnson does. And I think that got lost in the narrative. Like, oh, Matt Nagy, like he's the dude. He's just the genius offensive. It's like, yes, he was labeled that, but he wasn't even the top head coaching candidate of his cycle. That was Josh McDaniels. Like that he was the big fish. And John Gruden technically was as well with the contract, the contract that the Raiders gave him. And again, it's just the play calling experience and seeing what Ben Johnson has done and also with how picky and selective he's been to this point where he passed on Washington and the chance to coach Jaden Daniels.
Well, the rumor was
back to the Lions.
Sorry to cut you off, though, Jack. The rumor was he was going to go there, he was going to get Drake May. He was hot on him as the second guy coming out.
Yeah. Which again, I don't think would have been I think what you saw from Jaden Daniels this past weekend was a guy who was in a very good situation and still is going to need a lot around him to get to where they want to go. I still think Jaden Daniels is a very good quarterback, and he had a phenomenal rookie season. But I definitely don't think was as transcendent of a rookie season as they were, a lot of people were making it out to be. I saw something where it was like, people were like, oh, we've never seen a rookie season like this. And then they compared it to Dak Prescott's rookie season, and it's literally identical and including like the wins and losses, which I know is a big thing that a lot of Caleb detractors were pointing towards. And so my overall point is Ben Johnson chose Caleb Williams as much as the Bears chose him. And we saw it with on the St. Brown podcast where Caleb was like, I mean, if I had a choice, I'd take Ben Johnson. And if we don't, we'll see how it goes. Like, to me, that was like the moment where it's like, all right, I think we're getting Ben Johnson. Like,
Yeah.
So I'm feeling good. I know we wanted to get into the staff a little bit more. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention about Ben, Caleb, anything else before we really dive in here?
I'm so glad that you asked, because it's a perfect segue from what you just said to one of the comments that I made last week about, Kevin Warren sort of bringing this big boy operation into town. We're finally acting like it. And one thing, Jack, that I didn't realize I even knew that I wanted, and in terms of being a big market team, in terms of being, acting like Chicago isn't a mom and pop shop, is immediately upon signing with the Bears and then, doing the little introductory thing that he did at Halas Hall, which was so fucking cool, he proceeded to go on like 17 podcasts and just like, I listened to him talk. Going on the podcast is one thing. That was cool, but he's just so direct. He answers the questions. He gives you tidbits of the plan of what he wants to do. He's not talking in acronyms like we saw with Eberflus, like we're seeing with Cohen
Fast.
down in down in Jacksonville, and it's like it's refreshing.
Duval.
I hate Jesus Christ.
Duval.
I hate that Chicago has not had much success in this department because we can only have a few things that we can compare it to, but the only thing that comes to mind is listening to Theo Epstein talk. When Theo Epstein would get up there, and I remember his introductory press conference, and I'll never forget it, when he was just like, we're going to go the extra 10 miles. We're going to stay the extra 15 minutes to go if we're in Cuba or the Dominican to like get these prospects. And he did everything he said he was. And it's like, there wasn't this weird like, oh, we have to hide what the plan is, or we have to do. All of this is common sense shit. You just have to out execute other people at your job relative to theirs, right? Like, so the fact that Ben is doing that already, it just gives me such a good feeling. And I think the last thing about it, Jack, is I'm so at peace with the Ben Johnson thing, because even if it fails, we won't retroactively look back and be like, well, they should have got. No, this isn't a scenario in which we should have gotten someone else. There's a small portion of people who maybe wanted Pete Carroll. There's a small portion of people who maybe wanted Mike Vrabel, and that's fine. That'll always exist. But the overwhelming majority of the fan base wanted the guy, and we got the guy. This is wonderful. This is truly a win-win, because if he does what we think he'll do, we're going to win a lot of ball games. If he doesn't, we can't look back and be like, damn, we could have had Bruce Arians over Mark Trestman. Like, this isn't one of those scenarios. So that's what makes it very encouraging for me.
It's the first time we've hired the head coach that everybody wanted.
Yeah.
Like, it's really that simple. Like, and one of the positives is that you're seeing his former play. Like, there is nobody who's like, there's no Jackson Smith-Njigba comment about losing Shane Waldron. There's no like, oh, is this live? Like, are we really talking about this? Like, no, like, people, you saw Amon-Ra St. Brown's reaction to losing Ben Johnson. You saw David Montgomery's reaction to losing Ben Johnson. Like, it's very clear that this is a big loss for the Lions, and he's widely respected around the league. You see a lot of the hirings, obviously, with the coordinators, which I know we want to talk about, but Frank, to your point, like, this is the hire that modern NFL franchises make.
Yep.
This is what is the trend, and this is what we've been. It was why we were so against the Matt Eberflus hire when it first happened, because it just felt like such a step backwards. And you look really around the league, the last, let's see, I'm gonna count real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. 6 Super Bowls. The last 6 Super Bowls, one of the coaches has been a defensive guy.
Was it Bill?
I'm sorry. Past 7 Super Bowls, and the last one was Bill, when they won against the Rams. But you have Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan, Bruce Arians, Zach Taylor, obviously Sean McVay, Nick Sirianni, Kyle Shanahan again, Andy Reid, and now Nick Sirianni. Like, it's offense. It's offense. That's offensive-minded coaches are currently the ones playing in the Super Bowl. And this isn't just hiring an offensive coach because he's an offensive coach. This is a guy who's finished his offenses, who's running everything. Dan Campbell's in charge of the entire team. Ben Johnson is in charge of the offense. His offense, his play calling has consistently finished top 5 in scoring. His bad game that Lions fans are just crashing out so hard about was 500 yards and 30 points. There isn't a Bears fan alive who would tell you that is a bad day at the office.
Yeah.
Like, that is in a playoff game too. Like, and that's why, Frank, I actually love, and I think we can kind of get started right here.
100%.
With the biggest hire being Dennis Allen as his defensive coordinator. And for people wondering, oh man, that seems so random. Like, what's the connection? It's Sean Payton. And it's Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell, who coached under Sean Payton. Dennis Allen, who coached under Sean Payton. That's the connection right there. And Dennis Allen is coming to this team because he believes Ben Johnson is a guy that he can work under and help ascend to becoming a great head coach. And I know what I've seen the conversation. Oh, it's Dennis Allen. Like, what? Like, his head coaching experience isn't even that good. Well, here's the thing. It's kind of like Matt Eberflus, but better, actually.
Yep.
Because his defense success rate from 2019 to 2023 under Dennis Allen for the Saints, 9th, 1st, 10th, and 3rd. He's a very good defensive coach. And he's a guy that's had 2 opportunities to be a head coach in the NFL, and both of those stints were not very good. Which, to me, Frank, says that it's kind of like their Steve Spagnuolo hire, where it's like, it's going to be hard for him to get another opportunity to be a head coach. And you kind of saw Chris Jones talking about it after their AFC title game win, where he's like, I mean, people want to leave Spags with us. We're just going to keep winning. But the thing is like, teams aren't going to go out of their way to hire him as a head coach because they know what that looks like.
Yep.
So I personally love bringing in a DC who's tried to be a head coach. It hasn't worked, but is also a very good defensive play caller. And is also bringing that defensive that head coaching experience that a first-time head coach can lean on. What about you? Do you like the Dennis Allen hire as much as I do?
I love the Dennis Allen hire. I was going to bring up the defensive success rate as well. Shout out to Kevin Fishbane. That's who I saw tweeted. I was frantically looking for it in my bookmarks, and I finally found that after you had said it. So I'm glad you mentioned it. But the biggest point for me is what you noted is that past head coaching experience. And people will say, oh, well, it wasn't successful. That's not the point. He's not the head coach here. He can still bring that level of knowledge, that level of expectation, and help Ben Johnson along. Because to me, regardless of whether it was going to be an assistant head coach or a coordinator, either offensive or defensive, my biggest fish for Ben to get was a former head coach in this process. To me, that is going to be, for him, in this first iteration of things, the most important thing. So not only did they get one, they got one who has an elite track record of being a coordinator. Like, again, forget the head coaching stuff. You listed off the numbers there, and then even when it got bad with the Saints, it still wasn't bad. I think it was like the year he got fired, or this year was the 13th. I mean, again, like, I don't like, we're on record saying we don't give a fuck about defense. So if we're getting a guy who is just what he was last year and you give us a run-of-the-mill, middle-of-the-road defense, I'm okay with that. That's all hypothetically you would need with an elite offense. So I love the signing, man. I truly did. I think, and last point really quick.
Yeah,
I think
go ahead.
The biggest point is he's not, if all goes like we think it will, or we hope it will, let's say, he's not going to get poached. It's just he's going to be here for quite some time. And it's he runs a 4-3, so it's not going to need a roster overhaul, which is something that I know I was concerned about. If we did bring in Ben Johnson or really whoever, if it was going to need, because it's not as simple as switching from a
3 to a 3-4. There's a lot of roster overhaul that comes with that. So I like that they're staying with kind of the same system. It's going to be a little bit more exotic, not like Brian Flores level exotic defenses, but I think you'll see a little bit more creativity as opposed to just the bland Tampa 2. It is what it is. Like, I am excited about that. And like you said, he is going to be here for a while, right? Like, it's not something that is really going to affect this team overall moving forward. Really quick sticking on the defense, because we haven't had a ton of other hires on the defensive side yet that have been announced. So one quick one I do want to touch on is the Al Harris poaching from the Cowboys. Now, obviously, Cowboys secondary has been very, very good. The Bears secondary is very, very good, or at least can be, and should be very, very good if everyone's healthy and, not standing around and looking at the fans and not paying attention to Hail Marys that effectively ruin your season and get everybody fired. And yeah. Cowboys fans seem pissed though, Frankie.
Yeah.
That Al Harris is gone.
Yeah, and that was going to be my point, and I can really just rattle off the guys who, I'm not going to pretend that I know much about in terms of coaching, but Al Harris is one of them. JT Barrett is another one, and then obviously Antwaan Randel. Those signings to me and the reaction from their fan bases were so refreshing, because the spectrum was anywhere of like, man, such a good coach, y'all got a good one, fucking take care of them, to the opposite end of being like, I can't believe he fucking traded us. Antwaan Randel running down the sideline and being that happy must have meant nothing to him in his heart. Like, I love that shit, man, because, and I had to think about it, like, I will say this when it comes to Lions fans. I know people have been dunking on them, and maybe rightfully so. They've been a poverty franchise, so I part of me just feels a little bad for them. I get it, but they're not used to.
That's even more disrespectful, to be honest with you. They're pity.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I did not intend it to be that way. But they're in the same scenario as us. Who was the last coach that got poached off of the Bears in our lifetime? I don't know if there has been any. Maybe Adam Gase counts. I guess that's it. But my point being is they're not used to this, so they are going to take this personal. Versus you brought up the Shane Waldron thing, and while we were like, yeah, like we didn't know much about him and we didn't pretend to, but we were sort of talking about what we wanted out of him. Stick to the run, build off the run, do things that make sense, have a game plan that just naturally flows with the game to have this offense actually look like it's not a Pop Warner offense. Obviously, none of that happened, but what we heard from their fan base, what we heard from the players was like, oh, good luck with that guy. He thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, and the damning thing to me, I didn't like. When JSN said that, we came here on record and we're like, yeah, I mean, he was the third option. He was a rookie. I get him being frustrated. Who knows? The damning part was when a beat reporter went on Hogan Johns and was like, ooh, I'm not saying he's awful, but he just goes through these stints where he just thinks he's the smartest guy and this and that. Again, maybe I'm being too hyper specific on these examples, but we're not getting any of that with these hires. We're getting the opposite. So that to me means something. And as a fan with no access to like talk to other beat reporters or talk to people within, locker rooms, that means a lot, because we tried to downplay or like come up with the positive or why could they be saying negative things about them. And they were right. The people know what they're seeing in the same way that like when Adam Gase left, we were like, okay, I mean, he was all right. He wasn't like, did that deserve really a head coaching gig? Like, and then people were like, you're just fucking hating. He fixed Jay. He made Jay that. And we're like, no, he didn't, but good luck with him. And we were right. Like, fans and beat reporters know what they're seeing, and we're getting the reactions that I want to see from these coaching hires. So, to that point about Al Harris, and I don't know if you want to speak more in depth about any of the other guys that I named. I can't, but just that resentment from it is made me feel good.
I just like the JT Barrett thing because obviously JT Barrett and Antwaan Randel, which I guess the latter is the bigger one, because obviously we should go through it. That Al Harris is the passing game coordinator. I'm the DB's coach on the defensive side. And then JT Barrett is the quarterback's coach. And then Antwaan Randel is your assistant head coach and wide receivers coach, which I don't know if you've noticed, but the wide receivers in Detroit have been pretty good So
Yeah.
yeah, he's probably doing something right. Again, it's so much different again from Nagy because it's just like he's bringing guys with him that he has coached with.
Yep.
There's familiarity there, which I think is just I didn't realize how much of an issue that would be for Nagy, and it does make sense when you're starting from scratch, and those two guys had not been in the league that long to really build a super big network. So and it was interesting too because Ben Johnson said he wasn't going to poach from Dan Campbell's staff, and then he took two of the guys. So I kind of appreciate that gamesmanship. JT Barrett, successful college quarterback. I think someone that Caleb will respect, and I think someone that he can learn from, which I think is great. And then Antwaan Randel, like I said, a lot of the wide receivers, like if he can get the most out of because what gets lost, Frank, so much, and rightfully so at times, is the conversation surrounding Caleb. But the Bears had another first round pick last year that I know people downplay it, but it was still a pretty good rookie season overall. 700 yards for Rome Odunze. I want to see him to get developed, man. And I want to see Antwaan Randel. Like DJ Moore needs a guy to keep him in check too. And we saw a few times Antwaan Randel do that for Jamison Williams. We saw that the very popular video where he's just like, stop talking, please. And I think that's going to be good for this group. I think that's going to be really, really good for this group. Especially, again, it's a respected NFL player,
Yeah.
Antwaan Randel.
That's what I was just going to say. I was going to say, I think that does do a lot for especially Al Harris. Like, you talk about, and I don't want to sit here and downplay and act like guys who weren't in the league can't be successful. We've seen it happen before. It happens. But I think it may hit a little bit different when someone like Al Harris is telling you to commit to tackling as a defensive back versus if it was like fucking me, 5'8", $160, like, hey, buddy, hey, Tyreek, maybe you want to get your nose dirty in the trenches right there. You know what I mean? Like, so that adds another level of credibility for these guys, specifically Randel, Barrett, Harris. Jack, the big hoopla, and I don't know if we end here, is about Declan Doyle, the tight end coach, former tight end coach of the Broncos, now going to be the OC. Dad is a vile, awful, horrible racist, and the Bears fucked up. No, I'm kidding. I mean, Bernstein, go fuck yourself, you piece of shit. Do you have any strong thoughts? I don't know if mine's strong, but I certainly have a thought about it, or just like from a building a coaching staff philosophy.
I do think people are getting a little too upset about something that ultimately just might just not matter. Like, he's not play calling. So right there, you're not going to have the concerns of a guy that young. Because what is he, 28?
28, yeah.
28. Like, he's young. He's inexperienced, absolutely. But he's not going to be play calling. So it's just like, I don't really see the big issue. And obviously the big comparison is to Sean McVay, because Sean McVay was 28 years old when he became the OC for Washington, who also was a tight end coach before he got hired into that role. So it's been done. I'm not saying he's going to be Sean McVay, but it's a good opportunity. He comes highly regarded from Sean Payton, which, I mean, look, if you're going to come highly regarded from anyone, one of the best coaches in the league, that's a pretty good recommendation. So yep. I'm not going to act like I know what he does or what he's done in his time in Denver. It sounds like not a lot of people do overall. I'm just really not concerned because I don't think he's going to have that much of an impact, at least this season. It's Ben Johnson's offense. It sounds like he's probably going to run practices and drop cards and make sure everything's where it's supposed to be, play calling, like all that good stuff, that all the behind the scenes stuff that we won't really know too much about. And it's just not that big of a deal to me.
Yeah. The one point that I want to branch off of really quick before I give my take on it is the the play calling duties for this offensive coordinator with this staff, it wasn't going to happen at the coordinator level. So that automatically X's out anyone like bigger name or whoever that you want. Not you, but the general you wanted. It just is what it is. That's the way this works. Like if Brian Daboll were to get fired and he was in consideration for OCs, he wouldn't even consider this job. He'd be going somewhere to call plays, right? Like that's the way this works. So we kind of feel the same way, but I think our outcome's different. I think he's going to have an immense role on this team in a good way. He's not going to call plays. It's not his offense, but what this role is going to be for him is, and Ben Johnson sort of laid it out before the hiring was made. Like, what does your week look like as the offensive play caller, but also the CEO? First couple days, you're with the other groups, you're doing things, and you have your assistant sort of helping game plan and study tape. You got a 28-year-old kid who gets full night's sleep. I don't know if he has kids. I'm assuming he doesn't. This dude is going to have the energy to be up until any fucking moment that Ben Johnson needs him to, grinding tape, studying defenses, coming up with new, unique ways to use these pieces. And now again, to your point, we won't see that. We won't know what's happening. But just optically looking at what it is, I think he's going to play a huge role to a point where if he is the next McVay or whoever, or Shanahan, it won't be for us. We're going to lose him quick if he's as good as Sean Payton and now Ben Johnson think he is, because he's going to leave after a year or two to actually call plays elsewhere. It won't be considered that lateral move. It's going to be an OC with play calling duty, so we couldn't, trap him. But I think he's going to have a really big role in a good way. Like, he's going to be the dude addicted to caffeine, staying up till 3 a.m., and then getting 6 a.m. calls from Ben because he's just grinding the tape and doing what he has to. But again, that type of dude at that age and the experience that he has, that's the guy that you want. He's essentially a games tape intern, like implementation intern this year or the next couple years. This is the exact person in the exact scenario you need for this job.
And I don't know the rules around compensation, because obviously the Lions are getting a 3rd round pick for 2 3rd round picks, I think, for Aaron Glenn being hired as the Jets head coach. So maybe we're playing a little 4D chess, a little bit get, want that compensation down the road. But again, it's like, what NFL team is going to take a chance on him to I don't know. It seems hard. It seems hard to buy NFL teams giving him a head coaching chance when he hasn't called plays before.
No,
you know what I mean?
His next move will be, again, if all goes well here, he's going to be an OC somewhere calling plays. I mean, because do you remember that was the big thing with Eric Bieniemy? Was interviews seemed to be okay. He was on the coaching cycle every year, but it's like, but you didn't call play. We need to see that from you. And he went to Washington, right? A couple years ago. And honestly, I didn't think he did all that bad, but I know he took a college gig after that. So I think it would be the same exact thing. There's no way that you would hire him and he's also just very young. Like, he's 28 years old, dude.
I think you're going to have this staff in place for a good amount of time. And Frank, one last thing I did want to touch on real quick. I was trying to remember what else I wanted to say about specifically Dennis Allen. He's like a better Chuck Pagano, because Matt Eberflus was not a head coach, or he was a good play caller, but he obviously didn't have head coaching experience. Now it's like Chuck Pagano, but like better. Like Dennis Allen is a better Chuck Pagano. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, I don't hate that comparison at all. I think I mean, he's a very similar system. But to your earlier point about Dennis Allen, he brings exotic things in a manner that we, because even Vic didn't bring. Vic was really good with stunts and getting people where they needed to be and swarm to the ball. But even he didn't bring so many exotic blitzes and such. Because the one thing I was really hoping Nas can make this episode, because I know he would be, he's more into, especially defensively, into the X's and O's. And he's been fawning over that corner blitz that Spags did. And Dennis Allen has done, I'm not saying exact things like that, but he does things like that where he disguises his blitzes so well that I'm sure he would have brought up an example or two for the listeners to go back and look on their own time.
I do wish David Shaw had got hired as OC, because man, we were going at it a little bit about that. But
you guys were. Can I say I'm glad that it did not happen, because you guys had a whole hour argument that should have been saved for the podcast if it did happen. So I'm glad it didn't happen for that reason.
Good point. We could have just read the text back and done like a radio show, a radio drama. Last thing I want to touch on before we get out of here real quick, and I don't think this needs to go super in depth because we know who he is. I did want to touch on the special teams coordinator, Richard Hightower, being retained. Real quick, I personally love that because it's I just like that that Ben will have a guy on his staff who knows players on this roster, like personally, like skill sets, special teams. They know a lot of players. They go through basically the entire roster. So I just like having that continuity. And again, he's a pretty good special teams coordinator. A couple hiccups, obviously, with the kicking game. We know that, but a lot of that I think came down to head coaching decisions as well. But overall, solid special teams unit. And again, I just like that there's some continuity, and he he's going to be able to give Ben Johnson some insider information on this roster, other than what obviously Ryan Poles in the front office can give. He's got someone at ground level who's worked with these guys before and can provide some of those maybe missing details that Ben is looking for.
I agree with everything that you said. I'll also add that to any pessimist when it comes to Richard Hightower, and you can be, could this be another Bears thing, having that one guy linger? Is this our Chris Morgan? Whatever. I've seen the comments. I've seen them. But I have faith that Ben knows what he's doing, not only putting together a coaching staff, because he's brought some good guys with him from the Lions and such, but he was in this division. He studied this team. If he wanted Richard Hightower out, he would have got him out. Like he's not just keeping someone just to keep them. He has a level of intel that, I mean, I can't think of another example off the top of my head that an in-division team hired a coordinator to be head coach. I'm sure it's happened, probably even relatively recently. I just can't think of one. So that level of knowledge, because when he was even talking about like what he enjoyed about and why he wanted to stay in the NFC North and the other coaches, he's done his homework. He knows about every single coordinator. I mean, I with the way his nerdy brain works, it would not shock me if he knew like passing game coordinators on both sides. Like he's so just that standpoint makes me good. But yeah, you were right. Richard Hightower is a solid coach. I have no qualms about keeping him.
Yeah, Frank, I got to be honest. Like, all right, let's end the podcast here. Honest, because we still need a couple of hires, right? I think. Can you and I both agree that the offensive line hire is the most important one remaining? Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. So it's still an incomplete staff. Hopefully we find out a little bit. Hopefully it's more solidified by the time we're doing our Super Bowl preview next week, because we still have 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. I
yes.
just forget what it is.
Yep, 2 weeks.
But okay, so with that being said, with the understanding it's an incomplete staff, give me a grade right now.
I'm gonna go B.
Oh,
and
okay.
It's only a B and not an A, because while I did big up the Doyle hiring at offensive coordinator, I really wanted a mean, nasty O-lineman to like an O-line coach. Yeah, someone like that to be the OC. I thought that could have been really beneficial. Granted, we don't have an offensive line coach just yet, so my mind may change. But it wasn't just well, you just said his name. What is his name from Detroit?
Hank Fraley.
It wasn't just him. There was another one that they were mentioning, and I forgot where he was from. And I was like, either one of them, give him to me. Give him to me. 350-pound burly white dude. Toss him in there. I'm all in. So maybe it's just, it was my expectations, but yeah, I'm patiently waiting to see who the offensive line coach is, because we've seen a bad one over the last few years and how much of a negative impact it was. And to me, if you can poach a guy like that and make him the OC and have O-line duties, that's a huge upgrade. Where are you at with it?
I think about like the paid man. Yeah, I'm probably in the B range as well, and that's with how much I love Ben, obviously, and Dennis Allen, but like, it's so hard not to compare what's happening right now in New England, and it's just like that's an A plus, like that's an A plus staff. Like, oh man, that would have been awesome. That would have been really cool if we had that staff, but I feel confident in a B. And again, I don't want to overrate Ben right now. We haven't seen him do anything yet, so I don't want to just give him an A, just because of how excited I am that he's our head coach. Still first time head coach doing this, and we've seen things not pan out well with these types of hirings. But I've been encouraged with the like I've really enjoyed the staff that he's put together. I'm not gonna lie, if he had hired David Shaw, I might be giving this an A minus. Just because again, I don't really know what we're getting out of Declan Doyle, but I did really like the head coaching experience that David Shaw would have brought. And again, just from around the league, it sounds like David Shaw is one of the more respected football guys, if we even without having a lot of that experience. And again, I everybody knows who's listening to this podcast, I'm a big Andrew Luck fan. So look, guys who work with Andrew Luck, big plus for me. And David Shaw helping him get to that point, you know, developing him, I would have been great, I think, to have that experience for a guy like Caleb. So I would have liked David Shaw. I'm fine with Declan Doyle for now. We'll see how that goes, but I think a B is more than warranted at this point for the staff. But Frankie, Senior Bowl's going on right now. It's I just don't know, like, what how do you wait to hire people and like make this a fair system till after the Super Bowl?
Yeah,
like
I was gonna say
the draft process is going. Like the Jaguars don't have a GM right now.
I know something's
But
going to have to change.
Duval.
Yeah.
Duval.
They got your boy Liam. But something will have to
me.
change in this process very soon. Teams are they're sniping. I mean, the Bears did it. The Bears sniped Ben Johnson before. Granted, I don't know if he would have been in any other opening, but you get what I'm saying. Like this happens, I think, a little too often, to a point where, I mean, what if Spags was in the hiring cycle? That's not fair to him. Why they're about to three-peat potentially? Like then he gets the last job on the market. Like that's not good. So something's gonna have to change for sure.
Or if the Bills, for example, you know, if the Bills ended up, you know, wanting to move on from Sean McDermott, like what are their realistic options right now?
That's a good point too. I didn't even think about like a team going further in the playoffs and then firing the coach. Yeah, and then even in that same breath of what I said, same goes for the OC in Buffalo. Why am I blanking? Joe Brady. You know, I know you have talks and there's back channel things probably happening, because I know Ben Johnson, his contract was ready after the Zoom call. There's no fucking way. Everything moved too quick. So I you know, going off of their actual schedule and reality are two different things. But even so, you know, the Bills could have put up a even worse. They played well, but they could have done so bad. They're like, okay, we've got to get rid of McDermott. Like they weren't planning on it prior to. Right. Where does that leave them? That's not, you know, so. Yeah, it's not. It didn't feel like a very equitable process right now, and I think there will be changes to it. Now, does that change like Senior Bowls and other things? I don't know. It may be a whole ripple effect to wait till after the Super Bowl for
and
hirings to happen.
You think about them adding another game to the regular season. That's only going to push stuff even farther.
Well, no,
timeline wise,
I don't know if it will. I think they're going to push things earlier. So, like, instead of having a third preseason game, that would be when the first regular season game starts.
Get rid of that random week in between.
Right. That's what I mean.
God, because
no, you know what though, Jack? No, you might be right, because when they've been talking about adding another game, they also been talking about adding another bye week.
The bye week. Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, you got to have it's NFL schedule is getting too complicated. You got teams started having their bye weeks at like week 5, and
well, then in fantasy playoffs, it was like week 14. It was the most. It's getting strange, Jackie. It's getting strange out here.
They need to think about us fantasy players.
Yeah, they do.
Because that's where the real money comes in. All right.
Agreed.
Not this betting shit. That man, we'll have to have it. Maybe that might be an off-season conversation.
Betting,
sports betting. Yeah.
Just like what? Yeah, we can have like the hottest take about sports. I have some hot takes about sports betting.
Like how Dalton Kincaid just happened to drop that pass. Okay.
That was very funny when I saw I don't know if it was like a tweet or a meme. They were like, "Oh, they just threw the flag just in case he caught it." Yeah. It was just preliminary. That was very funny. And like, I'm not on board with like the refs are fixing it, but that tweet was fucking gold.
I did think that I thought the refs were fine, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a couple of ticky-tack calls, but other than that, it was
nothing. It wasn't to the level of Like, okay, they just want this to be
Yeah.
the matchup
Listen,
here.
at the end of the day, Josh had the ball with 3 minutes to go, down 3 with 3 timeouts, and he didn't get it done. If you're a Bills fan and you feel any other way, I don't know what to tell you.
But he should have thrown it on the orbit route to Khalil Shakir, even though he had
Jesus.
3 guys
Yeah.
literally right in his face, right?
Yeah.
Man, I can't wait to be talking about Bears playoff football.
Same.
We're getting there. We're getting there. I know Bears win the offseason, all that. But listen,
3 times in a row, baby. That's a
Vikings
three-peat in and of itself.
Vikings starting a rookie quarterback, and yeah, he's a rookie. He's never played, so it's a redshirt rookie. Lions without Ben, without their defensive coordinator, without Antwaan Randel, without a lot of their staff. Jared Goff turns back into a pumpkin. Just saying.
Beer, vodka, more beer, Hennessy,
and then what?
More beer.
What? The Packers?
Yeah, we're not fucking worried about Green Bay.
You scared about
Thomas Brown 1-0, baby.
What is the only other winning head coach against the Green Bay as a Bears coach than like Mike Ditka?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Well, I mean, but Lovey's record wasn't awful, though, yeah?
Salute to Thomas Brown. Thank you for your service, sir. Best of luck in New England.
Oh, and we should have mentioned him, but fuck, I hate that. I mean, no one probably got here, but he is now on the Cowboys. I texted you earlier.
New England,
that's right. Yeah, love that. I hope he lands on his feet. I hope he continues to move up.
You're thinking about Flus going to.
I'm thinking of Flus going to the Cowboys.
And you're thinking of Jerry Jones crying and talking about how
that was
dude. Man,
we lost him. He's gone.
I can't believe that they're like Dak and CD signed up for that. Come on,
CD's getting out of there. There's no way. He's not. No. He's gone. He's a Bear.
Rome for CD. Who says no?
Not I. I'd do that in a heartbeat.
All right. I'm not even. Also, bring back Khalil Mack. I just want to see Frank freak out about us bringing back. With
the edge. No. With the edge rushers we've had, I will welcome him with fucking open arms. Let me tell you something, Jackie.
Who drafted? Do you know who drafted Khalil Mack? Who was the head coach? Drafted Khalil Mack?
He got drafted to the Raiders. It had to have been. It was before Groovy.
It's not a trick question. It's not a trick question, Frank.
It was Dennis Allen.
It was Dennis Allen.
I'm in.
Just saying. I'm just saying. It should be a very interesting offseason. And the House of Halas podcast will be covering it all, unlike those bozos, pipsqueaks, who try and do it around the city, try to be better than us.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they don't even come close. I wish Nas was here, because I know Nas would be like giving us all the analytics about how you and I have terrible takes and how he's right and we're wrong, and we concede because he's got numbers to back up.
And I don't even look to verify. I'm just like, you're right, Nas. I don't know where he gets the numbers from. I don't know if he crunches them himself. I'm like, fuck. He's like, I come in with my M16 and I just get disarmed by none. I'm like, all right, okay.
He's one of those guys that just says something so confidently where he's just like, well, he's got to be right. I mean, that has to be true.
God damn, people like us vote in this country, Jackie. Yeah, holy shit.
Goddamn right. Goddamn right. All right, Frankie. This has been the House of Halas. The House of Halas podcast.
You're gonna be fucking deported, bro. Relax.
I'm done. House of Halas podcast. We appreciate you guys listening. As always, you can find our podcast wherever you like to listen: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. We're on YouTube. You can look at our faces if you so desire while we do this podcast. Until next week, when we are breaking down, I don't know. Frank, give me something to break down for the Bears.
We may do like season awards, end of season Bears awards.
Love it. Biggest Jagoff.
Yeah.
Worst smile.
DJ Moore.
Don't give it away.
Oh, my bad.
Don't. Cole Kmet would have caught that pass. All right. Dalton Kincaid.
Cole Kmet would not have been downfield.
He'd be blocking like left tackle that he is. Oh, God. All right. Frankie, let's get out of here.
For sure. Later,
you guys
Jackie.
listening as always. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you next week.
Later, everybody.